What is up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Angling Unraveled with Mitch and Doug. This week we have Trent Palmer on. He won stop number 4, Saginaw Bay for the NPFL. Won $100,000.
Yeah.
So give us a little. I guess we'll get right into it, Trent. I mean, give us a little story. I mean, obviously last year you took second place. What was your mindset going into this year?
As far as this season, I had two priorities, and that was get redemption on Saginaw. And then really the big focus is our last event, Lake Lanier. So Lake Lanier is closest boat ramp to me is about 60 seconds down the road. So that's one that I'm really looking forward to and been doing a lot of work all year to get ready for it. So there are other events. It was just kind of a, we'll see what happens type deal because I own my own business being Sonar Pros, and I don't get sometimes I don't get the luxury of having the freedom to go get as much time on the water as I used to. Unfortunately, when you open a business in the fishing industry, for some reason, you do less fishing. I haven't really figured out that formula just yet, but that's the first time I heard that. That's been the case for me at least. But yeah, the big focus for me was Saginaw and then Lanier. But as far as Saginaw specifically, so last year I had a pretty good taste of. I'd never been there before. So last year I didn't even pre-practice. I just did the 3 regular days of practice and had found some pretty good smallmouth out past the islands out in Huron. Just kind of lucked into a couple areas that just happened to be unmapped. I was running and all of a sudden my 2D sonar kicked up and I said, that's weird. There's a hump there and mapping does not show a hump there, and busted a U-turn and just kind of figured out there were some areas out there that I could have to myself. But last year at day 2, again, I'd never been there before and hadn't really learned how the wind could pretty much eliminate a good portion of that lake. Yeah. And so a big game plan for me this year was figuring out smallmouth regardless of wind direction. So I went into practice. I actually pre-practiced a couple days. Mike Corbishley and I went up before off limits and did a little pre-practice, and all I did was scan and look for smallmouth in areas that I felt like, well, if we have a south wind, a east wind, a west wind, a north wind, I in theory can fish for smallmouth all 3 days. Because ultimately, to me, I don't think largemouth can. If someone's on good smallmouth, largemouth will not compete flat out there. I mean, you can catch a bunch, but an 18-pound bag there of smallmouth is pretty, or of largemouth is pretty impressive. And at least for me, when I was, in pre-practice, I had 2 almost 25-pound days when I first went up there in pre-practice. And for me, just targeting smallmouth was the way to win. And ultimately, put in pre-practice time, found some protected areas. And then from there, tournament day, just kind of played. The 3 tournament days, I've never had a plan work as well as it did for our tournament. Yeah. Patrick and I were sitting down like, all right, we're going to have wind this way this day. So we're going to go here, here, and here. And to a T, what we mapped out as far as rotation was exactly what happened outside of my motor issues. That was the motor issues were
together for the entire Derby.
Do what?
Did you guys kind of work together as a Derby, you and Patrick?
Yeah. So Patrick and I do a pretty good job of working together in every tournament. Case in point, Santee Cooper, he told me where, how, and when it would be won, and I completely disregarded everything he told me. And, probably should have listened to him a little better and not been stubborn with what I did. But yeah, for the most part, we worked well together last year with our buddy Kimmel, and then this year, he and I work pretty. We're normally headphones in, talking to each other as we're practicing. Hey, I'm doing this. Just caught a fish over here. Just open lines of communication because it really helps with breaking water down.
Yeah, it definitely does. That's what, when we were up there at Saginaw, it was the same thing. Doug actually went out to the area where I found him in Port Austin the first day of practice. And I went out there the last day, I had a couple of areas up to the north, and I was like, I want to go out there to Port Austin, try it out, see what can happen. And I called him and I was like, dude, you got to come up here. I was like, we need to break this down even farther than what it is. Cause there's an underwater point out there. And obviously you can go up there and catch 15 pounds on top of that hump, like with no problem. But I got out there in 40 to 60 foot and started catching I mean, I was throwing a 1 ounce weight on them, and they were eating it before it hit the bottom. I mean, there was just a mega school down there. I think I had 19 pounds and like 6 casts, something like that. It was just unreal. I was like, I'm done.
Yeah. Saginaw is interesting because I really don't think there's a ton of smallmouth there. It's not like Erie or anywhere else where you're just kind of always throwing a smallmouth, or like Champlain, for example. Saginaw definitely has big smallmouth, but I don't think there's this overabundance of fish that move through there. I think if you look back at those college tournaments that happened a couple of years ago, they kind of always hit it in the spawn. And I think that's the time really Saginaw shows out. It's when those fish are pulling in to spawn, and then they head back out to the lake to be nomadic over deep water is what I think happens.
Yeah, they get pretty pelagic out there chasing those herring around, and
yeah,
all the other bait fish out on Huron. You know, it's kind of known for that, the fish out there. Here's Zona talking about it on his shows all the time about how pelagic the smallmouth are on Huron. And it's definitely a challenge fishing that Great Lake versus some of the other ones. I live next to Sturgeon Bay, and I fish there quite a bit. And, you know, it's a completely different body of water. Still a Great Lake, just completely different body of water. So it's a little different trying to break each one of them down because they fish a lot different.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, it's I mean, like I said, going into it, I had a pretty good idea of where and when and how I was going to approach it. And, you know, fortunately it worked out the way it did. I mean, I was really lucky to get the motor to last all 3 days that it did. Ultimately it let go on the last day when I was getting ready to make my run in, which is why Patrick had to bring me in. But,
you were going through what, like a quarter oil or a gallon of oil a day from what I heard? No.
So, well, kind of. What was actually happening, I guess to make a really long story short, what I had, we originally the issue came up at Santee. I dropped oil pressure randomly and we thought it was a sensor. Replaced the sensor, motor seemed to be fine. Well, that last day of practice, I was running back in towards the boat ramp by Port Austin, and my motor put me in Guardian mode for low oil pressure. And I was like, man, that's weird. It's been healthy all day. You know, I pretty much told myself, you know what, I'm just going to do an oil change. Maybe somehow I got bad oil. Maybe I can do an oil change and see if there's a problem. So I go and do an oil change on the off day, and without getting too much in the details on it, Mercury, for a while, Mercury had an issue where on 10W40 oil, I think, or 10, I don't remember. Anyways, they had a lighter oil that when you had your engine trimmed down, that oil would sit behind the rings, seep past the rings. Then when you crank up, you'd get a puff of smoke because the oil was too thin moving past the rings and you would burn off oil. Well, not too long ago, Mercury moved to 2540, which is a little thicker to help prevent that. So I was thinking maybe this new oil they moved us to is breaking down faster under heat. I don't know. So I went and got the old weight oil, called Sean Mulhall. He and I went out and tested the boat in the little river section where he was allowing people to test boats during the off day. He hopped in the boat with me, got on plane, and it pretty much sat at like 3 PSI for oil pressure the whole time. I was like, okay, we've got a problem. And went back out, called my Mercury mechanic who's over at Palmetto Boat Center. And she was like, hey, go find some Verado oil that's really heavyweight, because Verados run thicker oil just because they're smaller displacement, higher compression engines. And she was like, pop that in and see if the engine picks up oil pressure. Well, sure enough, I drained the oil, put the heavier weight Verado oil in. We go out and test again, and it's holding oil pressure. So it's reacting to thicker oil meant higher oil pressure. So I was like, okay, there's definitely something wrong with this engine. Went all around town trying to find a Mercury place that I could at least pull compression for me because I didn't have my compression tester with me. And I finally found a place called Bay City Outboard. The guy did a compression test. And to me, I was thinking in my head, well, if it doesn't have compression, then I need to find another boat. And I had another boat lined up. Actually, Mark Zona's boat rigger every year buys a wiring harness from my company. And he had a lineup on a boat that I could borrow up there.
Yeah, Tim's a really good dude.
Yeah,
I'm really good friends with Tim.
Yeah,
and, he's taught me how to rig boats. So.
Yeah, Tim was helping me find people to maybe get a boat. And then Mike Corbishley, one of my roommates, one of his Lawrence co-workers lives up around that area, and he was going to let me borrow a boat too. So I had boats lined up, but for me, I didn't want to fish in someone else's boat with different equipment because I knew that would impact me. So I was just like, anyways, long story short, even though I keep saying long story short, it's turning into a long story, but we did compression. It compression tested. So I said, screw it. We'll just take it easy on the engine. So day one of the tournament, she was fine getting out to my spot. On my way in, it alarmed. I think it put me in Guardian mode 20 times. By the end of this tournament, when we pulled the computer log, I had gone into Guardian mode 98 times.
Holy crap.
So I, on the way in, it was like, I had my oil pressure pulled up on my console Lawrence, and it was like 2 PSI, 30 PSI, 90 PSI, 2 PSI, 0 Guardian mode. So it was just fluctuating all over the place. I'm like, man, that's really weird. So I get to weigh in. I get my girlfriend to go run over to another Mercury place to get more Verado oil. And I changed when I get back after weighing in day one, I changed the oil. And, on the Mercury, I think you guys both run Mercuries.
Yep. I just swapped the Yamaha.
Oh, just swapped. Yeah. So, on the side, you got that little release valve where you can put a hose on it to make it drain into a bucket. Well, I put a hose on the side of it, a clear hose. And then when I drained the oil, fuel came out first. So like just clear fuel. I was like, okay, now I know what my problem is. So the engine was making oil. So every day it would make about 2 quarts of oil because fuel was getting past the rings into essentially the oil pan. Essentially fuel was getting past the combustion chamber into the oil pan and then just adding oil. Had Yamaha shows when they first came out in 2010 and 11 had the same problem. So pretty much made the decision every day we're going to just change the oil. So that's what I did day 2. At the end of day 2, she started getting real sketchy. That afternoon when I changed the oil, a lot of fuel came out, way more than before. And so day 3, or that before day 3, I always knew when the engine would let go, it would probably start burning oil. So I put extra oil in the boat, I put like 3 or 4 extra little quart jugs in the boat. And sure enough, I get out there, I tell my camera guy the spot. I caught him off of day 3 was actually where I caught him good day 3 last year. I said, man, as long as once we get there, we're good. Patrick's around me. I'll have a way to get back in. So catch pretty much all that, whatever I had that last day, almost 23 pounds, cut all that weight in like an hour and a half and then, or 2 hours or so. I mean, it was relatively quick in the morning. And then I was like, well, let's go make one more run. So I go make one more run over to another spot. And the engine was really struggling then. I looked behind me and there's like a smoke screen behind the boat because it was starting to burn oil. And then I got to my next spot. I was like, I'm going to go check the oil. And I pull the dipstick and it's like plumb dry. So I add oil to it, get back to my main spot. And then called Sean. I said, hey, is it cool if I call Patrick? He said, yep. So I called Patrick, said, hey, bud, I'm getting ready to leave. If you see a phone call from me, this thing blew up. He said he heard me get on plane and it sounded god awful. And then I ran down like maybe a mile and she finally let go all the way. So
that's crazy.
Yeah. Well, that's some adversity, right? To go into a win with, that's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. I definitely won't forget it. I was pretty mad. I'm still trying to get it. I want that. So the engine blew. We put a new power head on the engine. I'm trying to get Mercury to give me that block back because I want to make a table out of it.
That'd be sweet. Yeah, that's what Ross Rhodes. He's a good buddy of mine, and he called me. He's like, hey, do you know anyone around? Trent's boat's all messed up. And and Tim messaged me, and I was talking to Tim about it too. And it's crazy. Small world. Yeah. I didn't know that you were even talking to them at first, but
I just started. I was like, who the heck do I know up here? I was like, oh yeah. I was like, Tim. Earlier in the year, my buddy Ronnie got me in touch with Tim because Tim was getting ready to rig Zona's boat, and Zona wanted a good wiring harness, so he got one of ours and helped him out with getting a lithium set up in there. So I was like, crap, I know Tim lives up around here. And I called him. He was like, hey, I'm at some cheerleading thing, but let me make some phone calls real quick.
Yeah, he's a good dude, man. I've known him I actually started rigging boats with him at DNR Sports Center. He's the one that got me all into, or helped me start rigging. I've worked on them for a long time. My dad's a tech, but I started working there, and he taught me a lot of cool tricks. He's definitely probably one of the best guys in the industry when it comes to rigging.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, there's been another thing. Obviously, you won this one using LiveScope. There's been a lot of talks about LiveScope recently. So, what do you think about it? I mean, we got to talk about it.
I think so. So my company, I've been fortunate where I've got a pretty good collection of elite guys that I can call pretty close friends. I mean, Patrick Walters, Drew Cook, Buddy Gross, Drew Benton, are a lot of guys that use our products and our rigging services and are good friends of mine. So I've had a bunch of conversations the past 2 days over this whole thing, especially my buddy Felix, Austin Felix, who's kind of stirring the pot with his stories here the past couple hours. I think I'm trying to think how I can say this the most like PC way possible, because I can get pretty passionate about this conversation.
Unraveled for a reason.
But I think it is absolutely ridiculous that there are individuals that think people are being successful strictly because of forward sonar.
Yeah.
I look back to, if you look back when Kevin made his run in the early 2000s, what a lot of people don't realize, he had that run because he was one of the first guys only using side scan. He was one of the only guys that would go out and graph lakes, find stumps, submerged trees, brush piles, you name it. He was one of the only guys doing that. And he was successful because he could run and gun dots that he had located over that period of time. And a lot of these guys wanting this band are guys that are sitting at the bottom of AOI that feel like they are not successful because they don't know how to use this sonar. And here's the thing. I mean, obviously you guys both run LiveScope. Just because you can see them, sure as hell does not mean you can catch them.
There's been more times where I've turned it off because it pisses me off so much. I've turned it off, just straight up turned it off.
Yeah, I've wanted to rip my Garmin off my boat before and throw it in the lake because I've been so mad at it before. It's been like, okay, there's fish all around me. Great, I can't catch them.
Yeah.
But go ahead. Sorry.
I think it really just boils down to people just need to have something to complain about, don't they?
100%. Yeah,
And
everyone's
they
looking
need something to blame their own imperfections on.
Yep.
Or their own downfalls, and they'll use any means to do that sometimes. And this week it happens to be forward-facing sonar.
Yep. And it's
because you can really do a lot of it. Like if you mix, like especially if you use down a lot on your LiveScope, it's basically just an old school flasher. You can do the same thing with a flasher and 2D sonar.
Yep.
I mean, that's what I'm really good at, just from ice fishing, using a flasher. We've used it for bass fishing. I mean, my old boat had one on it. So just another way to utilize tools.
And that's the thing too. Like don't get me wrong, like smallmouth without LiveScope, smallmouth tournaments just aren't exciting to watch. Like even if you go back to the old elite shows where they're just 2D in them, I mean, they're still staring down at their screen. It's just the exciting part of smallmouth tournaments is the fight and them landing the fish. That fishing aspect is boring as shit to watch. I mean, it is. It's boring doing it. You're just sitting there flicking a drop shot around all day. It's boring. So what really, from an industry perspective, what really frustrates me is if this happens, I don't think these guys really see what the fiscal impact is to it, because by far, I would say probably the three largest endemic sponsors that Bassmaster has currently is Humminbird, Garmin, and Lowrance. You watch the live show, every other commercial is one of those three brands. Some of the top performing anglers are sponsored by those brands. And then I look at companies, independent companies like my company, Sonar Pros. I sponsor Patrick Walters. We provide all the electronics on his boat. We rig it out, and we get marketing benefit out of Patrick running all three brands because we sell and install all three brands. All right. So if the time comes that those forward sonars are banned, Well, companies like Garmin, Lowrance, and Humminbird are going to look to other leagues or other avenues to promote their products properly for the technology they're, making and developing. And that means pulling money from Bass. That means independent companies like myself aren't going to see a value in sponsoring the Patrick Walters, the Buddy Gross, the Drew Cooks of the world. And there's going to be a fiscal impact to these anglers, because why would Lowrance, Humminbird, and Garmin keep investing dollars into a league that they can't continue to innovate their products? It's just like a brick wall they're putting up that's going to have a fiscal impact to it, which I think is ridiculous. But it's just, again, to your point earlier, Doug, it's just when people don't perform, they look for whatever they can to be an excuse except for themselves.
Right. Yep. I think, if something like that were to happen, in my opinion, they'd be alienating an entire demographic of people from even being interested in wanting to pursue something like that anymore. Because if you look at the age demographics of really let's be honest here, who's complaining about it the most, right? It's a lot of
100%. It's the old timers, 100%.
Right. And so you're alienating the guys that are coming up in college, the high school anglers that are growing up with it, and you're completely just teaching them how to fish with it and then taking it away. I think there's probably a better way to do it. I think for what this is your number 4 or 5 with it.
Yeah.
For forward facing sonar.
Yes. It came out I was talking to Luke Duncan earlier. It came out in 2018.
If they were going to do something about it, it should have been immediately, like when they did it with the A-rig.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's too involved in the industry now, and it's, in my opinion, too late to do it.
Yeah, it's like Pandora's box that's already been opened.
Yep.
Yeah. We can't force everything. We can't put it back in. And fishing is cycles of everything, right? Right now it's not as much of a focus on what bait you're throwing. It's forward sonar. There's no disagreeing with that, right?
Yep.
But it's no different than like when a chatterbait came out, when a Senko came out.
Yeah.
Whether it's a technique, bait, technology, these things go in fiscal periods. I mean, it's going to be good for about 2 years. Then these suspended fish everyone's chasing are going to get their brains beat in, and they're going to go position probably up on the bank where all of us are going to be throwing spinnerbaits at the bank again eventually. Yeah. Like it's just it's phases with everything, and just the fact that there's individuals that think that they can't perform because they haven't. And that's the thing too that frustrates me. The guys that are good, like Patrick is good with forward sonar because he puts the time in to learn it and learn how fish react to baits. Yep. And people don't realize that. They think he just shows up and he catches them. That dude absolutely grinds to learn how a bait reacts in the water, how modifying baits react in the water, all of which just using his live scope to learn that. And like, I had a conversation with an elite pro earlier today that, was kind of giving the argument, well, I put all these years of time in learning how to jig fish, how to spinnerbait fish, how to, your traditional techniques. And now these young guys are just coming in with, forward sonar and beating us. Well, it's no different. Like you just got to put your time in to learn it. All those years you spent learning how to jig fish, apply that to forward sonar. I mean, that's just, I don't know. I think it's just a big cop out. It's guys sitting at the bottom of AOI that are at risk of whatever, not requalifying, not, losing sponsor dollars, whatever. I get it. But it is not, to your point too, like there's a large demographic of young anglers coming in that enjoy live scope fishing.
Right. Yeah.
And if we're going to tell them, hey, you want to go fish for a living, but guess what? How you learned to fish the past 10 years, you just can't do it up there. That's going to discourage some people.
Yeah, it would. And I can tell you that, like, I honestly really enjoy live scope fishing. It's super fun. It's like video game fishing is part of the aspect of it, but a lot of it is learning how the fish react to baits, like you were talking about.
Yep.
It helps you understand fish behavior, why they position, where they position, why they're doing it on that particular day. Like it's just an extra tool, in my opinion. And I think, like I opened with, it's just an excuse.
Yeah. I'd agree with it 100%. I mean, I feel the same way, or it's just, it teaches you too much, and it gets so many kids involved into fishing too at the same time. And it's just going to pull a lot of them away. Like I took my buddy's kids out the other day who had never even played with live scope before, and they had an absolute blast.
Yep.
I mean, one's 16 and the other one's like, I think he's 12 or 13. And man, they had so much fun out there. The one was giving the younger brother was giving the older brother shit because he was whooping them. And
I love that.
Yeah, oh, I do too. It was a good time. But
yeah, it's like I said, it's just something for everyone to complain about right now. It's the off season. I mean,
yeah.
I'll be pretty now. I know they've got a pretty large amount of, or not large amount. There's probably approaching 40-50% of people that want some sort of change based on the phone calls they've been making. I mean, I know the tournament director, the two tournament directors on the Elite Series have been making calls to every angler, asking them to kind of survey them. So it is legitimately getting traction. It's a little worrisome, but we'll see what happens with them. I mean, I don't see any other leagues making these changes. I hope not. But
I think it'd be a very poor decision.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're gonna. The ultimate goal for them, I think, is because they're trying to increase their viewership because the numbers were down this year for some reason, and they're trying to figure out if it was because people are winning tournaments on live scope. And I really don't think that's the reason. I think there's other things going into it, and
I think live scope tournaments are more fun to watch. Like,
there's a way to fix it. I mean, what they did with Johnson Outdoors, where they overlaid the screen in the bottom right.
Yeah,
just go ahead and do that. I mean, Lawrence's have HDMI out. The Garmin 86 series units have HDMI out. If a pro's running a unit that's compatible to communicate to their their media device or cameras or whatever, I mean, that would make it way more entertaining. And it's like I heard. So one of my good friends is Ronnie Moore, and he was telling me, the last two events did have lower viewership, but I really just think it just came down to they were just smallmouth tournaments just aren't that much fun. I mean, we like watching them from a technical side, but from a standard viewer, guy flipping on Sunday to watch TV, that's pretty boring to watch. And I think that's just how it is. So if you want viewership, just fortunately don't go to smallmouth fisheries. But I think what would make it pretty cool is if everyone could overlay forward sonar. I mean, that would.
Yeah, I agree. The same thing they did with at the Classic when they were showing Gussie doing it.
Yep.
And they had his hummingbird up there the whole time.
Yeah.
I mean, that's cool. I mean, it made it fun and where they could talk about what he was doing and why he was doing what he was doing. And it's a good thing with Zonas. He knows them smallmouth like that pretty good. So he was able to really talk about it and have a lot of knowledge on it. So that helps keep people interested too.
Yeah, it definitely does. I mean, like I said, there's ways to make it better, but I don't know. I mean, we'll see what happens. I don't think they'll flat out ban it. I think if something does happen, it'll be a situation of limiting how many forward transducers you can have. Yeah, is what I think they'll probably end up doing.
Yep. Well, so on another note, you got to be pretty excited about Lanier because it's in your backyard. What do you think? I mean, it's far out right now because we don't know if the lake's going to be turned over or if it's not yet. And there's a lot of unknowns, but just a general guesstimate, what do you think per day to win that tournament?
If things set up right, it'll probably be 3-day total close to 65 pounds, maybe a little more is probably what we're looking at. That time of year, if the turnover's done, there's 2 years ago, we had what was called the Kings of Lanier. It's just a local, like $200 tournament. All the, local hammers showed out for it. And I finished third in that tournament with 23 and a half all spots. And it took almost 25 to win. So, I mean, there is a possibility we hit this right that it could take some impressive weight. Now, the nice thing about Lanier and what I'm really excited about is this fishery is arguably one of the healthiest fisheries in the country. I mean, it is crazy how many bass are in this lake. So this should not be a tournament like we've seen kind of all year. Because, I mean, we've had some grinders every year. Every stop this year has been a pretty tough tournament. At least it has been for me. And the nice thing about linear is you would really have to go out of your way to not catch a limit. I mean, like legitimately, you would have to like go eat lunch for 4 hours.
Well, with all my years going, I'm really gonna try.
Dude, I'm telling you, if shit hits the fan, just throw a straight up green pumpkin shaky head on any point or bank anywhere on this lake, and you will catch fish. I mean, it is such a healthy fishery, not only from a weight perspective, but just consistency in when there's multiple day tournaments, everyone catches fish, and it should be fun. I mean, if the turnover hits, we're still going to catch them. Just the weight's going to be lower is the only thing.
Gotcha.
Okay.
What is your PB spot out of linear? And 2, do I have a chance of catching one over 4 to 5 pounds?
4 pounder is like catching a 2 pounder anywhere else.
Right,
4 pounders are pretty common. So my PB was a 638.
Oh, that's insane.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I got a couple buddies that have caught some. I think 2 or 3 over 7 here, but like your 3 to 4 pound range fish is really relative here, and they're once you find them, they're close together. I mean, they're schooling species, so once you find one, there's normally more nearby. Right. But it is we're going to have some fun. We're going to finish on a good note this year. It's going to be a fun, really, really fun tournament. The only downside is the whole traffic aspect with driving to weigh in. That part, you guys are not going to enjoy that part at all.
No,
I've spent so like Z decals. That's where I get my. So I drive around that area somewhat every for the last.
Yeah, it's horrible.
It's terrible.
Yeah, it's bad. It's I mean, I grew up around Atlanta my whole life for the most part. There's just bad traffic anywhere, and I don't know if you guys have looked at it, but we're launching from Laurel Park, which is way up on the north end. When I say way up, I mean it takes from Laurel Park all the way to the dam on the bottom end. It's like a 20-minute run. But we're putting in at Laurel, and then we're driving pretty much all the way down the east side of the lake, south of the lake, about 15 miles to Coolray Park. So it'll probably be about an hour drive for us from once you put your boat in the trailer to when you actually weigh in will probably be a little like an hour to hour 15.
Oof. It'll be some long days, but hey, if I'm catching 5 pound spots, I'm not going to care one bit.
You'll
I ain't gonna care.
Yeah, what's your PB spot you said?
Mine is around, I think that was an Alabama spotted bass. It's around 3 something.
Yeah, you'll break it.
Yeah, I caught a 4.5 on Chick this year.
That's a big one on Chick, but they're starting to get big spots there. They're starting to.
Yeah, they are. I was actually fishing a spot for smallies because I got a spot out there where I can go whack 22 to 24 pounds of smallmouth out there, and they just stack up there in the winter. And I was actually throwing a rig. I was like, let's just play around with this A rig for a little bit and see what happens. And next thing I know, I was like, I got a big old smallmouth on. I was like, I started freaking out because I'd never caught a spot that big before.
Yeah.
I think the biggest one I caught before that was like 2 pounds, 2.5 pounds.
Yeah. And our spots are herring. So we have herring and linear blueback herring. And these spots legitimately have teeth. Like it hurts when like some of the big ones will bite you, and like you'll put your hand in the live well and they'll come up and bite you when you're trying to cull them. Really? I mean, these fish are crazy. Yeah. I mean, heck, we had a 2-day BFL this weekend. I hopped in with no practice and was in the top 10. I ended up finishing 13th out of like 160 boats or 140 boats. But one of my buddies, day 1, he didn't do great. Day 2, and it was a 3-fish limit. Day 2, he had 14.5 on 3.
That's insane. I was watching the numbers on that.
Yeah, I was watching all that. I was wondering because I forgot it only had the 3-fish limit this time of year.
Yep.
And
that's the first time they've done that. That tournament happens every summer. That's the first time they did it. I'm glad they did because it was like 102 degrees the first day of the tournament.
Yeah.
And it unfortunately I still think a good bit of fish got killed. I mean, when you catch them, I was catching my fish in like 60 to 70, and they're just unfortunately that even if you keep them alive all day, it's more than likely they die once they get released. So I'm glad they went to a 3-fish just to limit some mortality aspect with the population. of spots on the lake. But yeah, it's luckily we got a really good tournament community on Lanier, and it's pretty religious. We don't do tournaments in the summertime except for one of the local tackle shops. They do a digital tournament every Wednesday, Thursday, which is pretty cool. Corbishley and I actually fished one. He came up 2 weekends ago, and we won the digital tournament that we did, which was pretty fun. But yeah, we get a bunch of tournaments on this lake. I mean, when it's not the summertime, I mean, it is not uncommon to have 4 or 5 tournaments every Saturday going on. So
that's crazy.
And it's crazy. It gets fished that much, and it's still just. I mean, that's why I say it's arguably one of the healthiest lakes around, just because it gets its brains beat in during when tournaments are consistent, and it just doesn't ever let up. I mean, it's still pumping out big bags.
So, what are you thinking for next year as far as you coming back to the NPFL?
Yeah, I'm going to fish the NPFL again. I really like the structure and format. You know, owning a business, the fact that we're 4 to 6 to 8 weeks between events really helps me. It's been a really good gel with my business and time and everything to fish it. Prior to this, I was fishing BFLs, Toyotas, and Opens, and what I always hated about the Toyotas was it was like 3 tournaments squished together and then you're done. And then you wait till November for the championship. And then BFLs are, you know, I'm not the best single. I mean, I won a BFL, had a bunch of top 10s in BFLs. I'm just not that great of a single day tournament angler. I'm more of the consistent Eddie in the whole thing. So NPFL's format where we fish all of us fish 3 days. Obviously I think next year it seems like we're going to have we are going to have a full field. So the payout will get back to being pretty good as far as, you know, that top 40 range getting paid. So I think I'm going to stick around because I think the NPFL's got a pretty bright future going forward.
Yeah, I think so too.
I agree. I'd agree with that. And with all the schedules getting released, what do you think? What would be your best 6 lakes for us to go? If you could hand pick 6 lakes next year, what would your schedule look like?
I would love, and I'm not just saying that because we're going here again this year. I would either love to see Hartwell or Lanier in February.
Yeah.
Because these lakes are incredible in the wintertime, or, you know, late winter, early spring, or it's incredible. I don't want to go back to Hartwell when they're on bed because I will suck and I hate bed fishing. So I don't want to do that again. Second event, I would love, let's just say that would be probably March time frame. I'd love to go back to Santee, get a little redemption there.
That would be insane.
Santee kicked me in the nuts pretty good this year.
Yeah,
I normally get paid there. Well, every tournament I've ever fished there, I've gotten paid except for our tournament. I almost finished dead last, but that's another story. So Santee would be second. Third event, I'd probably would want. So that would be probably what, April, May time frame.
Well,
probably
yeah.
April, May. I'd love to go back to Wright Patman. I really liked it out there.
April would be, yeah.
I thought it was a pretty cool place. I know we didn't hit it at a great time, but I'd like to go back to Wright Patman. If not Wright Patman, I'd like to go somewhere, probably go Harris Chain. I'll say Harris Chain, not Wright Patman. Harris Chain, like March, April. I'd then like to finish out, or not finish out. Doesn't really matter necessarily where, but I'd like the 4th and 5th tournament to be smallmouth. I mean, I'd love for it to go to Champlain. I grew up fishing Champlain. My dad's side of the family is from up there. So where I grew up fishing was Champlain. So I'd love to go to Champlain. I'd love to go back to Erie, say tournament 5, go back to Erie.
That was fun.
Yeah, that's a fun place.
Yeah, Erie's a blast.
And then the 6th event in the fall, I don't know. Oh, I know where. Clarks Hill Lake in Georgia, over in Augusta. Yeah.
Oof. So I know Clarks Hill, some, right? Not as, I'm not a local by any means, but that lake will humble you in a hurry.
Oh, 100%. It's the biggest lake in Georgia. You could spend an entire week and not see a bass, but you could also spend a day and catch like 30 pounds.
You could, yeah.
That's crazy.
It's got the quality, and I had Mark Strickland on, or we had Mark Strickland on from 5x3 fishing last week, and he lives right next to Clark's Hill, and I've
Oh,
stayed,
really?
yeah, with him a number of times and messed around on Clark's Hill, and he said, the grass died. They used to just be packed with hydrilla, and
Yep.
like I think it was 8 years ago or something, or maybe I don't know the dates exactly, but all the grass died, and then the dynamic of the entire fishery just
Changed.
completely changed.
Yeah.
And now it turned into more of a. What I think is going on is those fish are super pelagic now.
Yep.
I think they wander around, and you just got to kind of find those areas where they're coming up and feeding, and then pushing back down into the deeper water and coming up and feeding, and it's just a matter of finding where the bigger ones are doing that.
Yeah.
And the largemouth, same thing. The spots are so.
Yeah, well, two things. So I went to school down in South Georgia at a school called Georgia Southern, which is where I fished in college, and we used to go to Clark's Hill all the time because it was the closest lake to us that was honestly worth driving to. And I finished school in 2015. That was around the year the hydrilla started kind of dying off. Because actually, funny story, the entire reason they killed off the hydrilla was because there was a certain species of bird. It was a water coot, as we just call it down south. But it was a water coot that was eating the grass and getting some sort of parasite from the grass. And then bald eagles would eat the coots. And then the bald eagles died because of the parasite from the coot. So then they decided, we're just going to kill all the grass. So they put like 60 billion grass carp into the place, which also affected, there used to be dog fennel. I don't know if you guys ever, but there used to be dog fennel all over the bank, and those grass carp destroyed the dog fennel too. Mm-hmm. So two of their main, cover types that were on the bank got completely obliterated. And then the other problem is spots got really introduced into Clark's Hill. And the spots have just kind of taken over that place a little bit. It's not as good as it used to be, but it's still a fun lake. I'd say, the last tournament I'd either do Clark's Hill or Murray. Murray would be a good one too. But I think Patrick would take if we went to Murray, Patrick would take all our money at Murray too.
I think with Clark's, well, that would be fun too because they'd be schooling like crazy.
Yeah, they would. Yeah. It should. I mean, it would pretty much set up like what we're going to do for Lanier, but just large, in theory, more largemouth than Lanier. So we just don't have. Go ahead.
With Clark's Hill, I know a lot of the tournaments they keep all the spotted bass that you catch.
Yeah, they're starting to have. They do that at Eufaula in Alabama too. They have spot kill tournaments where it's catch as many as you legally can, and then they kill them all. I think
it's honest. It's to the point of no return, right?
Yes.
There's going to be spots in there. There's always going to be spots in there. No angler. You could put 2,000 anglers on that lake at one time, and it's not going to make it.
You won't put a dent in the. Yeah, unfortunately, spots when they get in a lake take over.
If they grew them. Man, that lake would be insane if they made it like Lanier. You know what I mean? Just let those spots grow up a little bit and turn it into an insane spot fishery. And there's 10-pound largemouth. There's probably even bigger ones than that in there.
There's giants in there.
Yeah, there's giant fish in there.
Yeah, it used to be a real special place. I hope it makes its rounds. I mean, what's still special about Clark's Hill is it actually still has. They still have a really good blueback herring population. Like our population on Lanier has gone down a little bit as far as like natural bluebacks in the lake, just because at one point in time our DNR deemed the bluebacks to be invasive, even though that's why the lake is so special with spots and stripers. But I'm not a biologist, so I guess I'll agree with whatever they were doing. But a few years ago, they put a bunch of extra white bass in the lake, trying to kill off the bluebacks. Which changed the lake for a little bit. Now we've kind of got a big resurgence of bluebacks. I don't know where they came from, but I swear bait providers started dumping them back in the lake. But
that had a really good spawn.
Yeah, but Clark's Hill has an incredible blueback population there. If you go there during the herring spawn, it's crazy. You'll have 6 and 8 inch herring just following your bait back to the boat.
Yep.
Yeah. What else you got?
So where are you sitting in points right now?
Heck, I don't know. Santee, let's look it up real quick.
I should have did my research before this one.
Let's look it up real quick. I was sitting real good. I was like 18th, and then Santee finishing almost dead last. Absolutely smoked me. I think now I'm in 22nd. Yeah, 22nd.
So you're still AOI is, it's pretty much out at this point with what the.
Oh yeah. Todd Goad's putting a good whipping on all of us.
The championship, however, still in the mix for you.
Yeah.
So what do you think that tournament would look like, with it being in March on Amistad?
Yeah, I have no idea, to be honest with you. I on the schedule, the two lakes that worry me the most are Eufaula, Oklahoma, and then our championship, because I don't have a ton of experience in Texas, and I definitely don't have a ton of experience in Oklahoma. So all I know is for Amistad, I'll probably have one of my ARs in my boat just in case the cartel gets interested. But
that's what I have. A couple sponsors that are down that way. That's what they said. They're like, when it was on the schedule for the first one of the year, they're like, you better just make sure to keep your AR in your boat, because they will, especially if you go up the river. He's like, they will try and get to you. And I'm like, I ain't playing that game.
No, I'll bring my plate carrier with my body armor if things get spicy. But I don't know. I mean, I know Amistad. Obviously that lake used to be really good. And my understanding is a parasite came through at some point in time and they had a pretty big fish kill. I mean, being the fact that if do make the championship, it's only 25 guys fishing for 100 grand, I'd probably keep a big bait in my hand pretty consistently just to try to swing. But yeah, I really don't even know what to expect for it. I'm kind of, my mentality with it is I'm not going to worry about the championship right now until I qualify for it. That's pretty much what the plan is.
Yeah. Yeah, I was actually kind of looking forward to it. There's a lot of grass in it. And the only thing that's bad about it is it's like 40 foot down or something like that. Like it's crazy how low it's gotten. But have they even
announced when it is?
I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
I think it was March sometime.
Yeah, March.
But I'd heard it was March.
But it'll be a cool one. There's smallmouth in there too.
Really?
Yeah. I was watching a couple of videos on it, and they're not big in there anymore, but there's definitely some limit fillers in there.
There's been a lot of water fluctuation too. I mean, they were going through a drought for years and years.
Yeah.
That's why it tapered off the radar for, as far as big giant fish lakes to go to, because it used to be absolutely
incredible.
Insane. Yeah. Right. And the water levels dropped and those fish were still there, but they kind of just went dormant. And now the water's way back up again from all the rain and everything they've been having down there. So it's going to be a toss up, man. It'd be an interesting one to watch. That's for sure. Cause I'm sure there'll be fish spawning, fish in pre-spawn, fish in post-spawn. Yeah. If it's in March, I mean, they'll be doing everything probably.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm curious how it'd be. I mean, I don't know. You guys do any pre-practice for Eufaula?
No.
Yeah.
No, I talked about it and just decided not to go.
Yeah, it's a far drive for me, so we're just gonna 3 days of practice. We'll see what happens. I mean, it sounds like that place is gonna be a grind.
Yeah,
we'll
see. I have a feeling you're probably right, but
yeah, I think so. But Lanier's gonna be fun. So
yeah,
if we can get through this one, just get to the next one.
Yeah, so, Lanier's going to be a good time. Like I said, I'm really looking forward to having us there, just because we haven't had a major tournament here since the elites were here in 17 or 18. I can't remember when, but it was a few years ago.
Yeah, it'll be. I've been looking forward to that one all year too. I thought it was going to be a fun one. Spotted bass fisheries are just fun in general. Like even if you're not catching limits, you're catching a lot of fish.
Yeah, I'm telling you, you'll catch. I mean, you'll catch a. You would legitimately really have to go out of your way to not catch a limit.
So you're saying there's a chance?
Yeah, there's definitely a chance. Like you.
Have you seen my results from this year? I'm pretty sure it's been one of them years that you just can't do anything right.
Dude, it happens. That's how I felt after Santee. I was like, wow, I guess we're just gonna. It's gonna be one of those years because I hadn't. The only. How many events we had now? I've only cashed 2 checks this year out of 4 events, and I'm normally a little more consistent than that. So
yeah, one of them got you a big old trophy to put next to that TV in the living room.
Yeah, I'm not. Well, it's kind of sitting here in my office. It's a little messy in here, but she's over there.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, this thing's excessively large, so
It's better than it being too small.
that's true. Yeah.
But no, that's sweet, man. Like that had to be a good feeling, like and to have Patrick help you out and bring you in and everything else, and then I wonder how Patrick felt on that, to know that you had to beat him by 2 ounces and he was the one that brought you in.
Dude, I felt terrible. So when I called him, I was like, dude, you figure out the timing. I'm not going to hold you up. Like, you're catching them. It is what it is at this point in time. Like, my motor's blown. Like, it's not your obligation to get me in. So he came down. Like, I heard after we hung up, he immediately pulled. I mean, he probably lost about 20 minutes of fishing time, and at least out on that spot. So we got the boats pulled up together, switched the fish over. Sean approved the 2 camera guys going in my boat for them to troll motor it over to the closest boat ramp that we were near at that point in time. And so we then ran in, and Patrick was, scooting pretty good because we thought we were going to get close on time. Well, we got right to the island and essentially Patrick had like 15 minutes to fish. And he was like, man, I wonder if I can fish. So we called Sean, and Sean's like, Trent, you can't fish, but Patrick can. So for 15 minutes, I sat on the back deck in the leaning post and watched Patrick fish that riprap there. And I was like, up until this point, like, I hadn't seen his fish. I handed him my bag. So he probably, he put them in the live well. So he had a good idea. And we hadn't talked about our weights yet. So I just sat there at the back deck, and he was sitting there fishing, caught a couple little ones. He's like, all right, dude, let's head in. So we get to the mouth of the river and we start idling. And I was like, all right, dude, you want to talk about it, or do you just want to we just listen to music idling in? What do you want to do here? He goes, what do you got? I was like, well, I know I've got over 22, but I stopped weighing them when I hit 22. I said I might be close to 23. And he was like, well, I've got like 19 or 20. And I was like, now, is that like a Patrick 19 or 20? Because a Patrick 19 or 20 is like 24, 26. Yeah. He's like, no, dude. I weighed him today. I legitimately have 19 and 20 pounds. I was like, all right. He's like, you can look at him if you want. I was like, nah, I don't want to look at him. I was like, if you got what you got and I got what I got, then it's going to be close. And then we just listened to Lil Wayne the whole way in on in the idle in. And then when he pulled his fish out to bag them, I didn't look at them. And when I pulled mine out, we didn't look at them. And we had a pretty good idea. It was close, but it was actually funny. On Luke Duncan shot me a text to give me a hard time about it. So day 3, Patrick and I intersected each other at one point in time. And I told myself all day, because the day before, day 2, I ran into Patrick and he told me he had 17 pounds and then he weighed in 22. So I told myself all day, day 3, I was like, if I run into Patrick, I'm lying to that bastard about my weight, because he did it to me the day before. So when he and I got to each other, Pat was like, what do you got? And I was like, man, I got like 18. And really, I knew I had like 23 pounds. And he was like, yeah, I got like 17 again. And I was like, that lying son of a gun. Well, apparently when I lied to Patrick about my 18, like, I'm the worst liar ever. I'll smirk anytime I lie. And when I lied to him about my weight, he saw me smirk and he knew that I had him. And apparently after he left me, his demeanor on camera totally changed. He was like, oh shit, I got to freaking get to work now.
Yeah, all right. That's funny. That's awesome. But that makes it fun though, when it's on live and both guys are talking at each other like that. Yeah. But yeah, dude, that's crazy. Like, I couldn't imagine like 1 and 2 riding it, like having to like ride in with Doug. And then I beat him and by 2 ounces. Like I'd feel good, like it'd feel cool, and then I'd be like, man, I feel bad for Doug that at the same time, but
just push you in the water.
Yeah.
Luckily for Patrick, he had one, Santee, and he's won a lot, and I wanted, either way, if he beat me, I was going to give that dude the biggest hug ever, because I know how much he works his ass off and how good he. I mean, he is Luke and I were talking about this earlier. He is on track to probably 20 years from now have a KVD type deal. I mean, so my my good buddy Felix sent me the AOY average for the whole Elite Series field. So essentially it was their average finishes of how many years you fish. So if you have fished for 10 years, there's 10 years of data. If you have fished for 5 years, there's 5 years of data. And it was everyone ranked from 1 to whatever was at the bottom. Do you know who is the number 1 angler currently fishing the Elite Series in AOI overall finishes for however many years they fished?
Probably Patrick.
It would be Patrick. Do you know what his average finishes in 4 seasons?
What's that?
5th place.
That's crazy.
He's only missed 2 checks in all of the Elite Series.
That's solid.
Like the dude is, I mean, number one, the fact that I beat him really made me feel good about myself a little bit when it came to fishing. But what I was more happy about was, because obviously I was like, dude, I hate that I made you bring me in. Or not that I made you, but I hate that you had to bring me in because I didn't want to have any impact to his fishing. But seeing him win last week was pretty cool. I mean, that was for him to get a smallmouth win when 2 years ago he wasn't that great at smallmouth fishing. For him to come and get a win last week was pretty cool.
Yeah, and definitely to have the biggest bag of smallmouth, I think is what it was, the biggest 4-day total in bass history, or 5-day, whatever it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great.
What was it? Day 3 when he had 28. That's He called me after he weighed in. He goes, dude, at some point today, I freaking called out a 5.4 and a 5.6. I was like, dude, that's freaking nuts.
That's crazy.
Those are the ones you don't even put cull tags on.
He was like, I had 2 5-pounders that had cull tags, and I have them on a balance beam. Oh, that one's small, threw it back.
That's insane. That's a heck of a day.
Yeah.
It'd be cool to see. I mean, we almost got to a dirty 30 last year on the Kissimmee chain in the fall. It'd be cool to see one of them.
There was one at Santee.
Was there 30?
Yeah, Quentin caught 30.
Oh, yeah, 30 even.
Oh, yeah, Quentin. Oh, yeah, did he have 30?
Yeah, I think it was 30 even on the nose.
That's a bag.
Yeah.
Yeah, that I really liked that we went to Florida. I don't know, Doug, because, Mitch, you didn't fish with us last year, did you?
No.
Yeah.
I didn't fish last
I don't
year.
know, Doug, I don't know how you felt about all the way up until NPFL, any year that I ever had a Florida tournament was always in January and February. And I hate going to Florida that time of year because there's always some massive cold front and the lake just shuts down.
Yep.
I know. I thought it was cool we went in the fall. I mean, it was still a tough tournament, but it was just cool to not go to Florida and be like, I hope it's not 30 degrees tomorrow and these fish don't want to bite.
Yeah, that was a fun derby. I mean, that was probably one of the more fun ones. Erie was probably the most fun I had last year.
Yeah.
And then the Kissimmee chain. I mean, it was the spot that I was sitting on. Nobody else found it. And I caught 18 and a half or 19 pounds off the first day. I had that like within the first 20 minutes.
Yeah.
It was, cool. And it was one of those things where my bait was never hitting the bottom all day.
Yeah, you're just catching fish.
Calling through them all day.
Yeah. I had seen that one on the schedule because I've been watching it for the last couple of years, and I just waited, and I had my contract already, and that one was itching because I grew up fishing down there. I grew up in Lakeland, and so that was right down the road from us, and we were there almost every weekend or whatever. And I was looking at that, and I was like, man, that'd be like, I really hope like if we can go to one, that'll be the one like again, because Kissimmee's so much fun, and it fishes. It can fish small and it can fish big, but
I'm curious what our schedule is going to be next year. I've heard some rumors. I know we're going to a herring fishery next year. That's not linear. Yeah. So curious what the rest of it's going to be.
I think we've all heard rumors and where we're going next year in some places, but it'll be interesting to see when it pops out.
I think I heard that they might come out with the schedule in September. I know they're waiting for the elite schedule to come out to try to not conflict. I think they're gonna try not to conflict with the elite schedule, which I think is a good idea. Just to try to not, I think it was Wright Patman we were at that overlapped with the elite schedule. I think that does nothing but really hurt us because unfortunately people are going to go watch the elite series compared to us. And I think if we can keep that separated, that's good. And I also know I think we're probably going to have 5 or 6 elite guys fishing with us next year. So not having a conflicting schedule will be good with that.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Well, they're starting to come out now. The Invitationals was a couple days ago. The BPT was a couple days ago.
Yeah.
So they'll start hopefully rotating
trickling through. Yeah. I'm curious to see what we go. I mean, I think ultimately the schedule we had this year turned into a good schedule. The first schedule that was on the table almost was the reason I wasn't going to fish. So I think they're going to do. I think the schedule. I have a sneaky suspicion the schedule next year will be pretty fun.
Yeah. I think so too. I hope there's. Like we've said it before. Like I hope there's 1 or 2 smallmouth fisheries, 1 or 2 more smallmouth events on there. Like that'll be fun.
Yeah, I hope at least 2 smallmouth. Yeah, I hope 2 smallmouth fisheries. I'd love to do another smallmouth fishing because, like I said, I grew up fishing Champlain, and then my family we've got a family lake house in Wisconsin that's actually where I grew up fishing in Wisconsin too. So I'd love to do more than 1 smallmouth fishery.
Yeah, we're at in Wisconsin.
Minocqua, Wisconsin.
Okay, yeah.
On Lake Tomahawk and Lake Minocqua.
Yeah,
no big smallmouth in that lake, but you can catch a crap ton of smallmouth.
I think that lake doesn't have a limit on fish, does it? I don't think there's a length limit or anything there.
Yes, for smallmouth, there's not. Walleye, you actually can't. They've had a 6-year ban on walleye now because the Native American population there spearfish for walleye, and they over harvested the lake. So there's been like a 6 or 7 year ban. So you can catch a crap on walleye in there. You just can't keep them.
Yep.
Huh. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. But yeah, I would like to see at least 2 smallmouth fisheries. Last year having 2 back to back was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Obviously Saginaw is not like what I think only 6 or 7 of us brought in smallmouth limits, but at least I think 2 smallmouth tournaments would be cool.
Have you fished out of Ocano?
Do what?
Have you fished on the bay out of Ocano?
I have not. Nope.
No. You're probably 2 hours west of that.
Yeah.
That place, if we went there in the fall, would be absolutely
crazy. Yeah.
It would take 20, I don't know, probably close to 30 pounds a day.
Yeah.
I'd love to do that. Yeah.
It'd be wild.
Smallmouth are so much fun. They're stressful to catch in a tournament. But God,
that's what I fished Traverse a bunch up here. Yeah. And I was up here in June this year, and like I think the weekend before we got up here, it took almost 29 pounds to win. And 50th place was 20 pounds, and 78th place was 15. And I was like, I can't. It's just so
it's like fun. That. It's like the elite event that last week. I mean, you had 20 pounds. You didn't even sniff fishing.
No.
It's crazy.
You're barely even making the top 50 cut.
Yeah, like you're like, oh, cool. I had 21 pounds today. 50th place.
Yeah,
right.
And some of them guys, were like, oh man, like this could be the biggest bag I have ever caught.
Yeah,
21 pounds in a tournament. I mean, that's not an easy thing to come across. And
yeah. But, Doug, I meant to ask you, did you ever figure out what the heck you hit?
Hit where?
At Pickwick.
Oh yeah.
The first time or the second time?
Yeah. There was a second time?
Yeah. So the first time when I ripped my engine off, that was a big old cypress stump.
Yeah. Were you running the back cut?
Behind the island.
Dude, I don't remember I think I commented on your picture. I shit you not, in college, my team partner, in literally, I would bet it's within 100 yards of that spot, did the exact same thing. Ripped his motor. Dude, it has. I mean, when you posted the dot up of it on our page, I was like, holy crap, that's where my buddy Tanner wrecked. Like his motor didn't, what he did was when he hit it, his midsection ripped off and it popped the boat up on its bow and it did a 360 and it shot him out of the boat. Yeah.
Mine, I mean, I got real lucky with what happened to me. It could have been, all the right circumstances for me to not get killed happened.
Yeah.
Because I was trimmed all the way down, like just everything that was supposed to happen for me to still be happened. Yeah. And then on day 1 in the tournament, I went up to Wilson and I busted the lower unit off of the boat that I borrowed for the tournament. So
nice.
My whole Pickwick experience has not been.
Did you hit one of the submerged rocks? up on Wilson?
I did, yes.
Yeah, there's some big ones up there.
Yeah,
it was. Yeah,
yeah. You think you'd have already had some of them mapped out since we were just there last year. Oh man, I got to see that lower units. It was in the bed of his truck for a while.
yeah.
He did
that's not.
that thing.
Yeah, that's not good.
No.
Yeah, hopefully we. I'm surprised more people didn't tear stuff up at Santee. Santee's a good spot, good place to tear some stuff up.
Yeah, like that happening to me in the beginning of the year really messed with me the entire year.
Oh, 100%.
The next 2 lakes were just absolute minefields.
Yeah,
because it was right. Yeah, it was right, Pat and Santee, literally 2 minefields
everywhere I go. Just waiting for
we had went to Santee, or he was already down there, and we went down for pre-practice. And so I met him down there, and I'm sitting there running, and I look over, and he's white knuckling.
Oh, yeah.
I had my counsel in, and he's white knuckling. I'm like, I'm running the Garmin lines, like I'm not worried about it. Like I know that like, they're normally like really really good about where you can run with them.
if you go to Santee,
anything yet?
Yeah, if you go to Santee again, do not have that rule. I mean, I used to fish there a ton in college. And like one of my favorite Santee stories is one of the guys on our fishing team. His name is Leighton Jones. We call him LJ. He holds a very unique record of rolling 3 trucks in college, 2 of which had boats on them. So he's not the most. He's not a great driver. Anyways, he was asking me. He was like, "Dude, I want to run to the other side of the lake. How do I do it?" I said, "Yeah, just run the cut down to the dam, and then you can hug the dam and run over." Well,
yeah.
I probably should have clarified the terminology "hug the dam" because me in a boat, I'm like 100 feet off the dam. He thought I meant like rip wrap boat.
Oh, geez.
And he was running down the dam, and a big old tree had wedged itself on like a 45, barely submerged, and he freaking clocked that thing. And he was in like some aluminum boat. The motor didn't rip off, but the boat went to a dead stop, and he flew into his console, ripped the entire console off, and then landed up on the front of his boat up by the trolling motor.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So I didn't hit anything at Pat or at Santee. I had one where I rolled up on it at Patman where I had to. It lifted the motor all the way up, and then it slid back down again.
There was a few that I did this on.
Oh, rolled it? Yeah, that's always fun. Yeah. Right, Patman, I didn't realize it was as bad. Like, there's a couple areas that I ran in practice.
Yeah.
And then, like, first day of the tournament, I was like, whoa, what was that? And it went right, like, a trail line I had went, like, right by a giant stump. I was like, okay, that's not good. And I started realizing a lot of the areas I was running was giant stump fields that
last day when it was foggy, I was running and I was doing the same thing. I was like, whoa. I was like, that one was close.
Yeah, not good.
We're just going to stay right on the same lines we've been on. We haven't hit anything on those lines yet. So,
yeah, well, luckily, I don't know about Oklahoma, but Lanier, kind of similar to the concept of you have to go out of your way to not catch a limit. On Lanier, you would really have to go out of your way to hit something here. So, all you got to worry about here is shoals.
Yeah.
Sounds like I just got to worry about catching a fish then.
Nah, you'll be good. I'm telling you. If shit hits the fan, you're having a bad day, just throw a shaky head. I'll
be going down there in about a week and a half to check it out. So
yeah, give me a holler if you're down here. We I live on the southwest side of the lake over in Cumming.
Okay.
So.
Yep.
Yeah, I might end up coming down with you. I don't know yet. It depends on how much fun I have this week up here fishing the state fish off.
Yeah, that's why we're together. If anybody's wondering, we have like this little cabin thing.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
The Michigan State Fish Off. So
for
That's
Bass
cool.
Nation, yeah,
Yeah.
They're doing it up on Thunder Bay. I wasn't gonna fish it, and then they said Thunder Bay, and I was like, all right, I guess I'm gonna have to go.
No.
Yeah, don't pull my arm too much to go to Thunder Bay.
Yeah, exactly. You can have a bad tournament and still have fun up here.
Yeah.
And I went out on one of the lakes today, and dude, they're so fat. It's the backup lake they're having in case we have a small craft advisory.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah.
I'm sitting there looking, and I was watching 6.5 pounders just strolling, and I'm like, this is gonna be fun if they start biting.
Yeah.
And I started fan casting, just dinking around, and had almost 20 pounds. And I was like, all right, in a couple hours, I'm like, all right, this is gonna be fun. Like, can we have a small craft advisory?
That's cool.
Yeah.
That'll be fun. Are y'all asked me earlier, are y'all fishing next year?
Yeah.
I am planning on it. Yes, it all depends on partnership stuff for me.
Yeah.
So
as long as sponsorship stuff works out, then I'll be back.
Cool.
For sure. I love the league. I love all the stuff they do. So
yep, I've been with them for 3 years. Might as well try 4.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll get lucky and
I'll call next year the redemption season. This year's just been, my year started off just as bad as Doug's did. So with the house burning down and everything, and all 2 days before Pickwick. I mean, it's just been one of them years where you can't do it. Nothing goes right. So
it's like last year I had a $50,000 team championship on Lanier. I mean, we put in 3 months worth of work, putting trees out, doing everything we're supposed to. Me and my buddy, we team fish here, and we're, really consistent on the lake, and lake turned over, and we not blanked. We had a limit for like 5 pounds and threw it back.
A bunch of little pickles swimming around in your live well.
Do what?
A bunch of little pickles swimming around.
Yeah, in your live well. I mean, and luckily one of my good buddies, or 2 of our good friends ended up winning the tournament. I think they had with the turnover hit, it ended up only taking about like 17 and a half a day to win, 18 a day to win. But it was, I totally, I mean, dude, there's always good tournaments, bad tournaments. There's just some seasons. I had 1 year with Toyotas that I just got my teeth kicked in 3 tournaments in a row. I mean, you hate to have it happen when we fish a league like this, because obviously there's a pretty substantial cost to fish these. Right. But I mean, shit happens, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's gonna happen. It's just part of it. You're gonna have them years that aren't good. You're gonna have them years where you feel like you're on top and finally doing something, and just when you feel like you're doing good again, it's gonna kick you back to the bottom.
Yeah, 100%.
Unless you're Patrick Walters, then you have an average of this many.
Yeah.
I mean, he was born to fish. I mean, legitimately. If you ever get a chance, talk to his dad. His dad's one of the coolest human beings ever. I mean, he's got a straight up I guess the term rag to riches story. I mean, he grew up like catching fish in the river, or Patrick's dad grew up catching fish in the river to eat. Like, that's how they ate every night. And like Patrick grew up like pretty much fishing since he was like fresh out of the womb type deal. So, I mean, it's crazy, but
yeah, that's crazy. But you got anything else, or?
I think that's about it.
Yeah.
Why don't you tell everybody that's watching where they can go to, your business, and give yourself a shout out.
Yeah. So I don't remember all my socials, but it's normally Palmer Trent. More importantly would be my business. So I own Sonar Pros out of Dawsonville, Georgia. We manufacture dedicated wiring harness. We also do installations, and we're a retailer for all the major brands of electronics and accessories. Kind of take pride in doing a little bit more in-depth work than a lot of other people. So if you're ever interested in getting electronics work done in around Georgia, Tennessee, South Carolina, give us a holler.
Definitely. I'll have to get in touch with you about those NBT screens.
Yeah, I've been looking at them. I've got a bunch of customers around here that want them. And I messaged Mitch today because I saw they came out with the version that'll connect with the Garmin black box, so you don't have to mirror off a screen.
Yeah,
that's something we're probably interested in to start carrying.
That's how I'm running. That's how I've been running mine on my new one. Is I got the 8700 series box, and I'm probably going to rip them off my 8616 and just run 2 NBTs, run the 16 on the console, and then just run a splitter on the 8700 series.
Yeah, that's cool.
It saves a lot of money that way.
Yeah, definitely. So, yeah, we don't do a ton of all Garmin setup, so the fact that there is a way to do standalone now,
you can actually run all 3 brands on that one screen at the same time.
That's cool.
So you can run Garmin, Lowrance, and Humminbird on one NBT screen at the same time.
Really? That's cool.
So yeah, it's pretty sweet. But well, thanks for coming on tonight, and
appreciate you guys having me on
your night. We really appreciate it.
Yep.
So
yeah.
Have a good night.
Yep. See you guys.